Oklahoma's got an opportunity to see some freshmen in the first 3 games of the season, with games against Temple, against Tulane, and Houston. Who will step up and shine? We'll discuss coming up next here on Locked On Sooners.
You are Locked On Sooners, your daily podcast on the Oklahoma Sooners. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
So, Jay, in the first 3 games of the season, and then a little bit later in the year against Maine, the Oklahoma Sooners are going to get an opportunity to deploy some of their true freshmen who might be a little bit buried on the depth chart. We just talked about running back and the depth that it has, that we may not get to see a Taylor Tatum for an extended period of time, except maybe in non-conference, or an Xavier Robinson. Who are a few guys that you're looking at as true freshmen, or maybe guys that are a little bit lower on the depth chart, that you think will have an opportunity to make a statement in those first 3 games of the season?
Yeah, I do expect us to rotate some of the young players in, just because it's good to have those bodies getting adjusted to the college game at the same time. Preparation for the SEC gauntlet of schedule, as everyone keeps reminding us, the SEC schedule is going to be so tough. It's good to have those guys prepared for it. But to be honest, when I'm looking at this, man, Daniel Okoye is one. We talked about him. ESPN had him as a list as a sleeper coming into this season. But Okoye comes in here 6'4", 6'5", legitimately in that size, at around 250 to 260 pounds, and he runs like a 4.5 40. So imagine that coming off the edge, chasing your quarterback. His favorite thing to do is blitz. He wants to go after the quarterback. He wants to hit people. He enjoys the violence of college football. And so he's one of those freshmen that I think is going to end up having a borderline instant impact, because I think that he's going to end up playing in those early games, because he's one that we need to make sure that we're tuning him up perfectly in preparation for the season. You know, you add him with like a David Stone, Jaden Jackson, one of your favorites, and then Reggie Powers, right? I think Reggie Powers at safety is one that we'll probably see rotating around with Robert Spears-Jennings at the free, or potentially at the strong spot, and moving like Peyton Bowen to the free spot so that he can just kind of be like a free agent floating around doing his thing. There's a good chance those 3 dudes are the ones that really jump out to me as ones that we are most likely going to have to find a way to get them on the field, because there's a chance they can be that impactful, especially early in the season.
I know all eyes are going to be on David Stone. You just mentioned him. I think that's going to be the one that everybody's kind of clamoring to see, because he's the 5-star defensive tackle. He's one of the highest rated prospects Oklahoma's landed in the last decade on the defensive side of the ball. And I mean, the hype is real. I mean, the dude is just good. He's a really, really good football player, and he's got the grind mentality, the work ethic mentality, that he wants to get better every single time he's out on the field. He's not expecting things to come easy to him. He's trying to go improve his craft every day. So I think a lot of people are going to be excited to see him in non-conference, to see if he can earn a spot and earn a role as a rotational defensive tackle later on the season, because you need that depth. You know, with the 12-game schedule and potentially the playoffs, you're going to need good depth, and you need your true freshmen to step up. I love that you mentioned Reggie Powers, another fan favorite here on Locked On Sooners, a dude that just physically he's ready. I mean, he is physically ready to go play the game of college football. Now, whether he's going to be mentally ready, we'll see, but I don't anticipate that being much of an issue. Brandon Hall had a guy like Peyton Bowen ready as a true freshman to come in and take significant snaps for the Sooners, and was a playmaker for that team. And so I expect that safety room with the leadership of Billy Bowman and Robert Spears-Jennings to have these younger safeties ready to go. Other freshmen, man, let's look at the offensive side of the ball. Got to see some Davin Mitchell. Got to. As much as like offensive line might be a question, tight end is still the biggest question mark in my mind, because I just don't know what we're going to get. But you throw a dude like Davin Mitchell out there, and there's a good chance you could have the next great Oklahoma tight end.
Oh, yeah. And the best part about Von Mitchell is that he is supposed to be in the 25 class, right? So you got a really young, raw dude who's already at size, right? He's already a legitimate 250 as a 17-year-old, which is pretty absurd to imagine that he was able to reclassify and come into 24 class when he's supposed to be entering his senior year in high school. As long as he, just like you mentioned with the defenders, they figure out the scheme, which is usually the biggest struggle of a freshman. You get them out there, you can let them run around all they want to, but if they don't know the scheme, there's a great chance that they're going to become more of a liability. example for that. As talented as he is, Caleb Downs was a very big time liability for Alabama early in the season, and it was only because he was young. You can trick freshmen. Freshmen are very easy to trick. They're not used to the game. They're not used to the speed. And it's not that they can't handle it. It's just there's great easy ways to, because they don't have the experience to remember that, oh, don't do this when they do that, because they're on attack mode. And so you get a Von Mitchell, you get him, body wise ready, you get him scheme wise ready. Yeah, he's one freshman that could really stand out on that offense, because as you mentioned, tight end is one of those positions where we have so many questions, right? I think you add with Von Mitchell, probably on the offensive line, you can look at a Eugene Brooks or a Eddie Pierre-Louis. Those are two guards that to me could end up rotating in a little bit earlier than expected and really pushing people around. And if you want to add one more to that line, Isaiah Autry, he's already at the size you want. I mean, he's sitting at about 6'8", roughly 310 pounds, 315 pounds. He's a big dude already. And he's just now 18 years old. He came in at maybe 300. I think he came in at like 290. And he's already added about 20 pounds of good weight to his body. Eddie Pierre-Louis, Lewis, he actually dropped from 330, which was on his recruiting sites, to like just over 300 pounds. So he dropped a lot of bad weight. They're going to bulk him up. Man, there's a good chance you rotate those freshmen in on the line just to test them out against like a Temple, test them out against Houston or Tulane. There's a good chance they're ready to play some meaningful snaps late in the season, especially if somebody does get injured.
Yeah, and I could also see a guy like Taylor Tatum, Zion Raggins in return duties, being able to make big plays and create opportunities for themselves in conference play. It's going to be fascinating to see. I think if you want to go back to the defensive side of the ball, we've talked about, the safeties, we've talked about the defensive line, but maybe a Jeremiah Newcomb, another highly sought after 4-star prospect that Jay Valai was able to land. He was the first commitment in the 2024 recruiting class. And I mean, I think he's going to be an impactful player at some point. Can he get some snaps in that non-conference season to maybe kind of show some stuff? Who knows exactly how much the freshman will play, because again, the depth chart is so much better going into 2024 than it was going into 2022, going into 2023, that you don't have to use your freshmen. You don't have to burn their red shirts, but you want to get some tape on these guys. Let them get some experience, get their feet wet a little bit, and just see what they're able to do and learn from those things.
Yeah, it's going to be all about figuring out that scheme early. And if they get that scheme down, it's going to be a blast watching young players. So these first 3 games, again, Sooner fans, have fun. Enjoy being in the SEC. Enjoy this new season. Enjoy this new quarterback, because you get to keep him for at least one more season. If he does live up to expectations, we only got him this season and next season. So you better enjoy him now and let him go out there and show up like you want to. But these freshmen, there's a good chance we're going to see a lot of them just get some burn throughout these first 3 games as tune-ups, because you're going to want to have all your bodies prepared for those SEC games.
And that's going to do it for today's episode of Locked On Sooners. Thanks so much for tuning in and being a part of the show. Subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts. We're free and available on all podcast platforms. Again, shout out to all the everydayers tuning in every single day with us here on Locked On Sooners. Follow the show on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, whatever it is you like to do your social media activities, at Locked On Sooners. Follow Jay at Unfair Sports, myself at John 9 Williams. And for your second listen of the day, go check out the Locked On College Football podcast with our guy Spencer McLaughlin. He gets you ready for an exciting season on the gridiron with discussion on the upcoming season and the ever-changing landscape of college athletics, including conference realignment, the transfer portal, NIL, new college football expanded playoffs, and more. Locked On College Football is available on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Again, thank you for joining us here on Locked On Sooners. For Jay, I'm John. We'll catch you next time. Boomer!
Sooner.